we are at the start of a new year, so this podcast is pretty timely. There are a lot of founders and sales leaders and AEs out there trying to master LinkedIn as a channel for generating a new business. In the next hour or so, we're going to focus on what are the best LinkedIn outbound strategies for 2026, and what is HeyReach, who is the leader in the space in sales, LinkedIn sales automation. What are they seeing in today's environment? We're going to give you a peek into what the top 1% of HeyReach users are doing differently that makes them so successful. And who better to do that? I am joined by Ilija, who is the CRO of HeyReach. He oversees thousands of customers, dozens of partnerships, including our one, and has been instrumental in taking HeyReach from a small, scrappy, bootstrap startup to the juggernaut of the $10 million ARR business that it is today. And I'm Halen Yules, the founder of ScaleMate. We're one of HeyReach's key partnerships here in the US. So Ilija, great to have you here today.
Thank you, Halen. I mean, what would I say after that intro? That's amazing. Thank you, brother. Cool. Everyone watching, thank you for spending the next hour with us. My name is Ilija. Don't even try to pronounce my last name.
I didn't try it.
Yeah. I mean, it figures, like, it's all good. So I've been behind the operations when it comes to the revenue from the very beginning with HeyReach. I'm talking about from before HeyReach was even HeyReach. And I want to encourage Halen and the initiative, obviously, to share value across all channels, because like a lot of speculations are happening on all ends. And in this hour, I'm I'm pretty positive that we will bring you and educate you at the same time. As for me, to wrap this up, obviously, I'm in a unique position, if you will, just because I'm doing revenue and obviously outbound and working with people doing outbound at the same time. Because for the ones who don't know, HeyReach is a LinkedIn automation tool. It's nicely trending on the market currently. But yes, that gives me a unique access to like the best practices and to the best experts out there to actually have a chat and know what's going on. So pleasure to be here.
Awesome. So I want to structure this so people get like value right at the top of the session. Let's start with what the top 1% are doing differently than everyone else. Like what makes them stand out, what drives their success. Then we can go into what's broken on LinkedIn, which I'm sure will be a good discussion, and then go more into strategies, tactics for 2026 and the rest of the year. Give some guidance to folks listening and hopefully level up their LinkedIn game. Now you get insight, like you mentioned, to thousands of not only end customers, but agencies, creators, people who are all day, every day doing LinkedIn outreach. So you've got a very unique perspective across a wide range of different customers. I'll start broad and I want to see where you take it, but what separates the top 1% of HeyReach users from everyone else?
Nice. Great question. If I have to sum things up, like what are the best performers actually doing, there is one key basically sentence that will set the tone for everything else. And the thing is, obviously, the top one is perceiving LinkedIn as a social platform, not as a communication channel. So what it essentially means is that email, it's basically a communication channel. You send an email, cold outbound, warm outbound, you name it, it's just you get a yes or no. And that's pretty much it. That's where the discussion essentially effectively ends. You have cold calling, which are the OGs on the outbound as we know it. Or, I mean, to my surprise, obviously, LinkedIn was not even introduced in some segments of businesses, but that's regardless. Then you have cold calling, where the response is even faster, where it's basically yes or no, and like a phone being hanged up. That's pretty much it. Now, if you want to differentiate yourself, or pretty much like we are going to just do LinkedIn outbound and hoping for the best in terms of like hoping that someone will say yes, we have to take a look basically of what's LinkedIn all about. Now, don't get me wrong, long gone are the days where LinkedIn was essentially a true social platform, something that you would see on TikTok, for instance, like people exchanging content and stuff like that. LinkedIn, to an extent, positioned themselves as a database where they are pretty much selling on Sales Navigator and Recruiter subscriptions. But either way, there is this social element of the platform, and it will always be, just because in the base baseline, well, it's a social platform which you have to respect the certain rules that that social platform has. So what that means, without me being theoretical, and being more practical, would essentially mean like you cannot really expect, if you are not active on LinkedIn for ages, that you will just start off doing LinkedIn outbound campaigns and having a massive success with it. It just doesn't work, right? The way it works is that you have to be on the platform. So what I mean by that is obviously you have to have a decent enough profile that people will resonate and basically say, okay, cool, so this is an actual person and not a bot, for instance.
Yeah, and we saw when I started posting on LinkedIn, I definitely saw an uptick in conversions to meetings booked, just because when they go to your profile, it's just one click away and they see videos, they see a somewhat professional setting with my new city background. There's value there. There's posts that are explaining things or workflows or whatever it is, but a massive uptick, which isn't really measurable. You can't really measure how much content increases conversions, but you can see it just look and feel, temperature check, which definitely helps for sure using it.
It's a perception thing. Like somebody will come to you. I mean, you are knocking on someone's door or somebody's knocking on your door. You open up like the door, and what are they going to see? What are they going to find? And first impressions matter, right? And in this digital type of life that we are all living, it's one click of a button and a 5-second attention span. So it's not going to be the worst thing that will happen to obviously just fix your profile, number one, connect with people that actually are matching ICP and obviously they relate to the industry that you are in. And here and there, again, I'm going to repeat this, here and there, start posting about the challenge that you've seen that ICP actually having and the proposed solutions that you've seen in place. So you can be informational, you can be tactical, you can be salesy in your LinkedIn post. Nobody cares about that. But obviously, like if a person lands on that profile, what will they see? And let's say
I've got two insights that are kind of funny to some degree, but also indicate just like social media in general. I've had two successful posts that didn't go viral by any means, not millions of impressions or whatever, but significantly higher than what I usually get. And those two posts were a photo of my dog at Christmas saying like, Merry Christmas, everyone. It's been a great year, all this. And it was still business related. It's not like I just posted my dog like I would on Instagram. And the other one was we got a response from a customer and it went obviously into our Slack channel and it was fuck you, something like that, right? Which doesn't happen often. And it was legitimately the first time that had ever happened to me. So I screenshotted it, posted it, and just because of that word, it got a lot more impressions, even though zero value, which I thought was pretty funny. And I am seeing a trend, obviously, with people on LinkedIn putting their face out there, filming things, recording things, more of a personal brand. I am seeing a trend towards, I want to say, less valuable content, more lifestyle focused YouTube, Instagram related content. It's not there yet, but there's a little bit of a shift.
Of course there is. I mean, the shift means that we are getting more audience, which are the Gen Z and the millennials. That's why the content shift is changing, right? Before that on LinkedIn was like 40-year-old dudes who actually just had like a job role and a position. So long story short, to cut it short to make the most out of this webinar, like I have to give you one piece, if I have to give you one piece of advice in terms of like, if you're thinking, what should I post about? That is the easiest part. Pick on the ICP and pick on the challenge that you are solving to that ICP, whether it's a platform, whether it's a service, regardless, like that solves a problem. What type of problem? Write about that problem. No, you will get 3 likes, you will get 5 likes, you will get 100 likes, you will get viral, you will do nothing, and it's all good because you need that piece of evidence that you are someone. Because when you start actually proactively going against audience, because when you're doing outbound, that's what you essentially do, you proactively go, people will land on that profile. This is not a burner inbox that you will hide behind. This is not a redirect to your landing page or to your website. This is you actually with a business card or a LinkedIn profile in this case. So just make it stand out in terms of like, okay, cool. So
the top 1%, they are posting content at least. There's probably some debate around what type of content, how to like farm engagement. What are they tracking? Like what metrics are they looking at that might not be intuitive, or it's something slightly different than everyone else?
Okay, so the impressions are not being tracked as much because we are not talking about like marketing influencers over here. We are talking generally people who actually need to generate more businesses, and that can be like a sales rep, a founder-led sales motion, and so on and so forth. So ditch the impressions, ditch the reaction. The smart guys are actually tracking inbound leads, basically people landing in your inbox based on the content that actually says, hey, I saw that you write about X, Y, and Z, right? And once you do that, that's your inbound lead. That's something that your content actually produced. So inbound leads are measured throughout the inboxes. And the second part that people are measuring is the acceptance rate on an outbound campaign. So the acceptance rate and the reply rate, we're going to have a chat about this. Those are vanity metrics, like they do not mean business, but again, they set the course and they give you direction whether you are doing the right thing. So what that means is an inactive account would typically get around 17% acceptance rate. An active account on LinkedIn would typically get 45% acceptance rate. So the difference on how the content is impacting will be measured in the acceptance rate, because people are landing, people are seeing, people are liking, and people are like, basically, yes, you have my permission to be closer to me. That's essentially it, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's another thing. When we are about the top 1%, they know their metrics. That's another thing we are going to explain a little bit throughout this chat, I guess.
Yeah. And one thing I'll add there, replies, yes, is kind of a vanity metric. I use, being in, agency product business, starting acceptance rate to really understand if that customer profile that you are sending messages to, I use acceptance rate to know if they're even on LinkedIn. Now, there's a whole bunch of ways you get data and all this sort of stuff that can influence that a little bit. But if I see something that's less than 30%, they're not that active on LinkedIn, because all you've done is send a connection request. That's it. And if it's coming from a decent profile, you can indicate and use that as a proxy for this ICP is not really that active. That's first thing. Second, replies. I would just take it one step further and go replies to booking ratio is something that we definitely look at. If that falls below 15%, you've got a problem with messaging, most likely.
Yes.
So that's even beyond positive reply rate. If you're looking at to booking rate, for customers that do their own replies, they should be following best practices. So if that goes below 15% from a reply rate to booking rate, that can be a problem, which shows they're probably not following up. They're probably not sending the right link, or no link at all, asking for email, all this sort of stuff that should be done from a best practice standpoint.
And this goes for all the agencies or agency owners watching this, for later instances. People tend to assume that their outbound campaigns is always not the right, meaning I have not picked up the right ICP, the right messaging is not there, or the inbox management is yes, all of those effectively influence on the outcome of the campaign and the approach itself. But there is this another segment which agency owners, in a rush to close a client, they forget about that. What if the offer actually sucks? What if you're in a place where you're representing a client, doing the best you can, the best work ever seen, but you essentially have a non-performing offer? And don't we basically just question if you did everything properly from A, B, C to Z now, and it's still not performing? Check upon how the offer is actually resonating to the market that they have on, and whether adjustments should have been made. Now, why am I pointing out this for agency owners? Because guys, great to onboard as many customers as you can, but it's far more important to offer customers which are eligible for scaling, because not all customers are eligible for scaling.
And that's actually one criteria we use to make a determination if we want to bring on a customer, is we do a trial, free trial period, until they get their first qualified meeting booked and held. Now, in that trial period, there's a campaign that runs, and the first step, or one of the first steps, is sending a connection request. If we see a significantly below 30% acceptance rate, we question if we even want to take on that customer, because we know fulfillment is going to suck for the LinkedIn portion of what we do, right? So that's also one. You can obviously waste a lot of time on customers where it's not in the best interest of either party to be working together. So that's a good filter that we use.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, they are trialing your services, but you're trialing them as a customer at the same time. So it's a fair objection, right? So, I mean, people tend to forget that regardless of how big is your team, there is certain level of customers that you can onboard. You cannot onboard an endless amount of customers at any given time. You're not a SaaS, you're a service provider, right? So basically, you just need to focus on the people that you can provide most value to. And that's something that the top one is know-how. I mean, you're basically setting up, okay, this is the ICP that we know for a fact that we can provide value to. So do a little research, suggestion really, but I take it from Helen. I mean, this dude knows what he's doing when it comes to having a well-defined ICP he wants to work with.
And that transitions great to the next point I want to talk about, which is what's broken on LinkedIn right now, and And maybe let's start with either agencies that have a poor ICP or end customers that have a ICP that they don't fully understand. One of the debates that I get into all the time with founders I talk to, they are struggling with email constantly. So they say, well, where do I get my meetings from? Well, LinkedIn's a channel. Now, the debate is it your channel that you're going to be successful on versus Meta or, you know, whatever other platform versus YouTube and inbound? They don't understand the intricate details that an agency does about LinkedIn. This can stem from poor definition of ICP that might not even be active there. But what are some of the pitfalls you see agencies or end customers make when it comes to a poor ICP definition?
Nice. So a poor ICP definition, before we jump into like the buyer personas and signals and stuff like that, there is one crucial differentiation that's going to happen, because again, social platform, not a communication channel. If it was communication channel, that means that you can find anyone there. Like you can find anyone on email or a phone, just because like they have to have a phone or email. But on LinkedIn, they tend to have a LinkedIn profile, right? But that profile may not have been open, or a person may not have logged into that profile for ages, right? So a key differentiation factor is that LinkedIn has an activity issue. It's not an issue, it's just how LinkedIn works. Not everyone is going to be on LinkedIn, and that's a fact. So for instance, if you are thinking about, oh my God, I've just found a great new way or a tool or stuff like that, but I work with service industries in the US, now you're thinking, well, would you find a plumber on LinkedIn? No, right? Would you find an electrician? Hell no.
Founders do come to me sometimes from those industries and ask me about it, and it's like, nah, I don't think it's gonna.
No. There is a very practical exercise that you can do to decide on whether LinkedIn is the channel that you should practically go at, right? So ask yourself, okay, the person that I need to target for XYZ customer or for myself, regardless. Two common knowledge sense questions. Like, does this person has like a legitimate reason to be on LinkedIn, right? And now everyone has like a plumber on LinkedIn. No, like why not? And if the answer to that question is I don't know or maybe, you ask yourself a second question. Can this person actually generate leads on LinkedIn, right? Because this is a business-to-business world, right? And if a person cannot generate leads on LinkedIn in any form, like paid ads, like outreach, like social posting, they will not be on the platform, right? So that's a practical exercise that anyone can do to define whether we should oppose LinkedIn as a channel against a specific ICP.
And these things become easier, like a simple who's active on LinkedIn prompt into ChatGPT will give you top 10 industries. Like it's super easy to go and find now. So that would be first step. You've got to, whatever business it is, go and check if your customers are on LinkedIn for sure. The intricate details that I'll talk to now on defining an ICP, you can write a document and say, here's my buyer personas, here's the industries I go after, the size, all that stuff is fine. The problem is LinkedIn has notoriously bad data. So when you set up a company page on LinkedIn and you put an industry, that's the responsibility of the person creating that company page puts the industry there. If they get it wrong, or if they just choose something randomly because it was when they started the business 10 years ago and then that change of whatever it is, the underlying data set's incorrect. So when you pull a list to go and do your outreach and it's using LinkedIn as the primary source, the industry tab is just the one I use as the example because it's really bad. You need a way to filter out the noise because there will be a lot of noise and some industries are worse than others. I don't know if you've seen the classifications on LinkedIn into that level of depth, but like some of them are completely random and they change over time and it's a mess. So without an overlay of let's get rid of the people I don't want to talk to or the companies I don't want to talk to, it's not overly useful and you waste a lot of outreach like credits or whatever because there's limitations on LinkedIn. Reaching out to people who are never going to be interested in your product.
Yes. Additionally, again, I'm going to about the LinkedIn as a database, guys. Like LinkedIn is the only self-updated database in the world. Like, let's take Apollo for instance. Apollo needs to go somewhere and get some data to keep it fresh, to keep it live, to keep it, etc., etc. But then again, LinkedIn is self-updating. Why is that? Because if I change a job, I'm going to change my LinkedIn profile, right? And that's me being self-updated. Now, there is a good and bad. The good is that you will always get the freshest details about a person that you can possibly can. Bad thing is obviously you're risking like people just messing up with the data, especially on the company side of things, where they are not inputting the correct information, right? So there is a good and bad, just people should be aware of that. So when we talk about like obviously the top 1%, like they know how to rely on which source of data and when, right? So it's one thing that advice, LinkedIn industry based on a very reasonable explanation, that's top 1% advice if you ask me, right? Because people know like this is a common mistake. This is why it's invalid to begin with. The top 1% actually knows where to source data and which data sources to be used in a specific time frame. So what that essentially means, yes, sometimes we will use LinkedIn and sometimes we will clean it additionally with an external data source or push it into Clay or do a further enrichment, but then we're going to make a decision about the channel itself.
100%. Cold email has completely changed. Even since I started ScaleMate, like we had email as 95% of our business development. We weren't even doing warm email back then just because we didn't have the bandwidth of doing a newsletter. We do now, but it's completely changed, and it literally changed overnight, meaning my open rates when you could track them were at 65% roughly, and they literally dropped to 20% overnight in April of 2024. Everyone is kind of aware of this, at least in the agency world, because that's their whole business shuts off overnight. And now founders and SaaS companies and whatever are familiar with it, but they might not be sure why email sucks now, or you have to scale it up a lot to do cold. A lot of attention, that means, went over to LinkedIn. So just in our business, it went from 90% email to 90% LinkedIn, right? Are people treating LinkedIn like cold email now? Is that
That's a mistake of 99% of people. So about the email chat, I'm not here, no email expert. I mean, I've not done it, stuff like that. But the reason why email is basically just hitting all-time lows is because of the email saturation to begin with, and second are the limitations that are posed by Google and by the spam filters and the spam checkers. So essentially what that means is that a lot of people are doing emails. Now, fun story, just like something to keep the conversation live. On a workshop, I was asked like, okay, so we all talk about like inbox saturation and where should we reach out people, and like what's the best channel that you should reach out people to when you're doing outbound? And I'm like, well, you should definitely send them a postcard. Now people are like, well, we are talking about modern day digitalization of everything, and now we are talking about a postcard. But I mean, core of it, like nobody is reaching out to that inbox. You get utility bills and nothing else. So that's the best place where nobody is reaching, best inbox, right? So at the same time, if too many people are doing the same thing, then obviously it will get too crowded and too noisy, right?
And that's literally, that point there is literally how you be successful as an agency. All you need to do is stay 1, 2, maybe 3 steps ahead, if you're really thinking about it, of everyone else where the attention is undervalued. And if you can focus your time there and then constantly move the goalpost, you'll be successful over the long term.
Most definitely. So the whole differentiation between email and LinkedIn, right? One mistake, I mean, people are coming to Tool, for instance, with habits, right? And the habit is, for $1,000, I could have reached a million people over email. And now you're like, well, like with 1,000, you can probably do nothing really. It's a setting expectations wrong. And people are like, well, with those 1 million people, I can generate 5 meetings. And I'm like, what if you just need 800 people to reach out to, because that's the LinkedIn limit, and you can generate the same amount of positive meetings or meetings booked. And now you're like, wow, I need scale to actually do things. No, you don't need scale. I mean, to a certain level of extent, yes, everyone needs scale, but then again, it's not the same principle as email. So what people tend to forget is that LinkedIn will get more conversational. You can expect by default higher reply rate, and especially if your messaging is tweaked in a sense to generate a conversation rather than a meeting, and I'm going to explain a little bit on that. So people neglect the inbox management. What that essentially means is that if you're doing LinkedIn outbound and you've hit your ICP and you have a solid offer and the messaging, your inbox will be plummeted. Basically, you have to be on LinkedIn and responding or nurturing or hire someone to do that job for you, because it will happen. That's number one. Number two, you cannot expect high numbers. Yet, I mean, in theory, yes, you can, but again, I'm going to leave that for a separate discussion. I'm going to say, like, if you know for a fact that you can reach to 800 people per month, let's say that that's the hard cap. The question next is like not why I cannot reach 1,000, but the next question will be how can I best leverage on those 800, right? That's the next question. And this is where the whole focus should shift from building out a great lead list of 800 people rather than how do I do more, right? So that's
which incentivizes quality over quantity to some degree. There's agency hacks, let's say, that you can get around those limitations with scaling up accounts and all this sort of stuff, which then turns into the same thing a little bit as cold email. With cold email, you need multiple domains, subdomains, multiple accounts, and then you scale it up. The limitation on LinkedIn is number of accounts you have access to. So you can scale it up that way as well. But in general, it incentivizes quality over quantity, which leads into personalization. Again, back in the day when we were doing cold email, it was like very easy to do personalization that really worked. We were just slightly ahead of the curve where we would do the research before Clay, before tables, before AI columns were a thing. We had people, virtual employees in India, who were researching contacts, finding if they spoke at an event, finding if they read a blog article. And it'd be a very complimentary little bit of language. I saw you attended this conference and did this speech, loved what you said, blah, blah, blah. While that's nice, it doesn't really work anymore because it doesn't add any value, in my opinion. It's just a compliment. It's nice. What are you seeing on LinkedIn from a personalization standpoint that actually works, that's probably more than just a, hey, saw your great speech?
Okay, nice. Great question. Now, here is the thing. Let's give a little bit of back history of how we've ended up in a Clay and AI and hyper-personalization at scale, right? Back in the days, there was only Lemlist, or I don't know what type of competitor was that, where they basically released that image manipulation, hey, first name, like on a cap, or like on a glass that says like a coffee mug, if you will. Hey, first name, let's grab a e-coffee or stuff like that. So the funny thing was that because it was fresh, it was new, people were responding. Like that part is all great. Now we've managed to turn that like, okay, so now let's do in-depth research because we have all of these AI workers and we have Clay now who basically gives you a hyper-personalization at a bigger scale. And then let's shoot those hyper-personalized messages. The problem is that every AI personalization that is happening is similar to every template that was released. So back in the days, like obviously so few people were doing LinkedIn outbound or email outbound for that matter, and they followed the same 5 templates that were closable on the market. Now we've changed the 5 templates to 5 prompts because it's the same prompts and they're basically going to give out the same output. So what that essentially means, I mean, check your inbox, right? How many messages do you see? Hey, I saw your recent post about X, Y, and Z. That's great. And there is no context, like why are you mentioning even that post in relates to the second paragraph, which should be like why you, why me, stuff like that.
Yeah, right? And I think that's the missing piece as well with a lot of agencies specifically, is they don't entrench themselves in their customers' business. So making that link is hard because you need to understand their ICP, you need to understand their product, their challenges, their pain points, which is more effort up front because you probably have to have multiple meetings, you have to learn about the customer a little bit more than you otherwise would. But the outcome of doing that at the beginning during onboarding is I can now write a way better email, a way better LinkedIn messaging campaign because I understand at least your business to a certain degree. I just see a lot of agencies don't do that at all.
Yeah, absolutely. There is also a valid explanation behind of it. So let me give you a backstory that we've did. It resulted in great response rates, and we were like over our heads, like, oh my God, this is so great. So we've spent so much time and effort to actually go with the email copy back then that go like employee 1, 2, and 3, like sales rep 1, 2, and 3, and this is essentially meant for a revenue leader, so like a head of sales and stuff like that. So basically, to a head of sales, you basically say, okay, so sales rep first name 1, 2, and 3 would benefit from this. Like that was a great subject line, and the output of that, and there was some level of personalization because I believe that Ilija, Helen, and person C would benefit because of X, Y, and Z, and we offer HeyReach as an automation tool. Now that resulted in like a massive 15 or 10%, I don't know about the number, but let's say 10% reply rate, zero business, right? Why? Because it felt to the recipient, we even got like emails, oh, this is the best outreach email that I've got. And I'm like, yeah, great. Like, are you willing to pay? No. Like, so, and you're like, well, we're having all of these chats, but this is essentially leading to nowhere. And the reason why it's leading to nowhere is because we failed to do our research in terms of like which company is relevant to be reached out to at which point. Like that's the research. That's the key to every outbound. And not about like I'm going to mention that I've seen your post, your publication, your fundraising and stuff like that. So what will happen? I mean, I really want to give like orchestration about 26. Maybe we will just be a little bit creative at the very end. But truth be told, personalization is good if it's used in a context of starting a conversation, something that proves that you did a research. But again, at the same time, hyper-personalization is nothing because all you need is hyper-relevance. Hyper-relevance beats hyper-personalization any day of the year. What that means...
And I was going to say, never underestimate. If I had to choose one thing, change the ICP or change the message. Changing the people you're targeting with the same message is going to have a way bigger impact than changing the message to the same people. Usually the target list is the most important part of this whole process. The message obviously still needs to be good. You can't just say hello, right? But if I had to change one lever, try to increase my reply rate, I would change the target list 9 times out.
To anyone listening, really, if you had the most hyper-personalized message in the world and you send it to a non-relevant lead, would that generate business? No. Opposed to that, if you have the highest relevant lead list possible and you send them a generic message, it will outperform pretty much any outbound, not just personalization. So what we were playing around and what we were testing, and this was coming from an inspiration from another agency, again, the top ones, they were using something called like micro-sequencing on LinkedIn. So micro-sequence on LinkedIn is basically one sentence in a message. And then you have like 3 messages that go with 1 sentence only. So the audience is so relevant based on key parameters such as like where is this company at and where is this decision maker at in his career path in this company, right? So because obviously what that essentially means, like I can be a CRO at a declining company and I can be a CRO in expanding company. And this is the same CRO, but in different states in my life, and different things will resonate with that. So they spent so much time to actually do the hyper-personalization, and they smashed it on the campaign, and they were hitting like simple messages. And the message was something like, hey, we do this, like, would you care to learn more about X, Y, and Z for your company? That was message 1, message 2, message 3, micro-sequencing, 1 sentence only, killer campaign.
Yeah, and common mistakes that I see as well when we onboard a customer and we're like, can you send us some of your most successful outreach? And they literally send an essay, and it's like, but then the results are, well, we get 2 meetings a month, and it's like, well, that's probably why. Long messages do not work on LinkedIn. It is short and sweet. Now, will you be able to get it to the point of 1 sentence? Maybe. Depends how good you are at building lists. And then just before we get into signal stuff, because that's a whole conversation, I also think just speed of replies handling is a massive area where not only agencies fall down because of priorities and literally just resources and headcount that they have, but customers definitely do. So if you're responding within, if you can get it under half an hour, which sounds like a long time, but when you've got 500, 600 replies coming in every week across customers, like that's a lot. You need some people there. I do not believe yet in the space of automatic replies for cold outbound. I just don't think the technology's there yet. We've tried a whole bunch of stuff to try it, but it's very difficult. If anyone's listening to this and they've mastered it, please DM me.
And okay, so I got pitched a lot because like that's the thing. Inbox management is the most underestimated thing that people do not take for, they take for granted. Oh my God, like let's take care that people start responding. I'm like, what if too many people start responding? How are you going to handle that object? Are you going to onboard a person and train them on your business to start responding? Or are you, oh no, there is this AI. So the AI thing, and obviously I was pitched a lot by a lot of companies because we have a unified inbox that holds all LinkedIn accounts inboxes into one centralized place just for that purpose. And I was pitched a lot about, hey, we've created this AI SDR that actually manages and handles everyone's inboxes at the same time. So first and foremost, I was like, oh my God, this is so amazing. Like people, will definitely benefit from this. But then again, the quality was not there. Yeah. Why? Because like there was a simple question. And the question was, listen, I would love to integrate with you and your AI SDR, right? That's number 1. Number 2, just be honest with me and tell me, like, how would you rate the responses from your AI SDR on a scale from A-level, top dog, Wolf of Wall Street type of closer to a Filipino VA at the very bottom? Not Filipino, but like a third world country. I don't really want to generalize. So to a third world country VA that you would
English second language, like
like where would you rate this person and like your bot? And people are like, well, something about the VA from a third world country. Okay, cool. Then call me when the AI SDR is essentially at a B player in the US. That's the difference. You can never really. At the current state with the current technology, you cannot replicate and mimic like a human behavior at that scale. You can probably, I have no idea, but again, that's a mistake.
So many factors, like we'll get responses and sometimes I'll be just looking at them if I have a second and I'll see on someone's profile, like they're Australian. There you go. This is a good one. This one happens quite a lot because we do a lot of outreach to Australia. I will use something around Sydney, if they're from Sydney, that's where I'm from, in that response because I just know it'll resonate with with them, even if it's just a mate in the copy, right?
Cool.
An AI platform doesn't make those little decisions. It will make this is an interested response. Here's how we think we should structure it based on the context that you've given it and load it up with it and whatever. But it's just not quite there. I don't know when it's going to get to a B player or an A player, but it's probably like at a D player right now. So we were doing some stuff with N8N and all these fancy workflows, but we never got it to fully work to be implementable anyway.
Of course, I get your point. I mean, this is pretty much predominant for anyone listening saying, oh, there is a tool for that. No, like either there is a service behind of it, like an agency who have tested at a bigger scale to understand what's going on, or you just do things manually because for obvious reasons, right?
Yeah, 100%. One topic that gets a lot of attention is signal-based, intent-based targeting and data in that whole sub-industry for outbound. Let's keep it broad. What is working today from a signal/intent strategy on LinkedIn? Because in my opinion, there's a lot of BS out there for intent signals. So interested to hear your thoughts and maybe what other agencies are seeing.
You know, from time to time, like job posting will pop up in your newsfeed and stuff like that, and you're seeing like, okay, we are hiring like an SDR, right? A company, X company is hiring an SDR, regardless. And whenever I see that, well, I'm like, well, God rest the inbox of the manager, because based on that signal, everyone will shoot a message. Hey, I saw that you're hiring for an SDR. We have like a AI tool that doesn't, I mean, it will replace your SDR that you're hiring, or we have a CRM, or we have a stuff like that, and that part is all good. So a couple of things are happening. Oversaturation of signals is happening because like predominantly people signal tracking and signal based type of outreach is becoming more accessible through varieties of tools. So that means like a lot of people will use the same signals. One thing that it's obviously blowing mind, and this is from my dear friend Brendan Charlison, we were just playing around a little bit on that one, cross-channel type of outreach. So what that essentially means, social media platforms, but cross-channel. So you typically see, even like I found your LinkedIn post on an email type of copy, that also resonates better compared to I find your LinkedIn post and that message you send it on LinkedIn at the same time. What we were playing around a little bit, cross-channel meaning I found your post on X, but I'm writing you on LinkedIn. That's cutting people off guard.
We used to do that back in the day with LinkedIn to email.
Mm-hmm.
I've never thought about it from a X or whatever. My ICP is not really on like other platforms too much, so it's a little bit tough. I don't really think about those things too much. But that is interesting. It caught me off guard just when you said it. So
yeah. It was a funny one because like obviously there was the surprise element, like that the signal itself should be used as a surprise element, because in some cases, like if you know that they're hiring for an SDR, obviously you don't have to mention that, hey, I saw your job post. You just have to go hiring new SDR causes a problem of XYZ. This is how we solve the problem. So you don't have to go overly specific. It's not about the signal that you use. Signals will change, right? And for every industry, there is a different signal. For every business, there is a different signal that is relevant. What people tend to make a mistake is obviously use the current signal, but obviously forget about the past history. So what that means essentially is, let's say you have a company, and again, the same situation, they're hiring for an SDR. Now, what an agency or what available signals are like, okay, you can see like who is hiring. But then again, like a top 1% agency goes a little bit back and says like, okay, how is the movement in their sales department for the past six months? Are they hiring because they're desperate? Are they hiring just because like they're expanding? Like, and that's a different shift on the perception of a company. Like, what type of company am I reaching out? Yeah. So that's another thing, and that's something that smart people are obviously doing. But then again, like based on signals, there is no secret sauce. There is no something I'll follow this signal and it will like kick ass or whatever reason. Signals will change.
Yeah, signals change over time. And there's always the way I structure it is like the highest intent signal is someone has taken an action on your company. They've filled out a form, they've liked your post, they've commented on your post, they've asked for a lead magnet, whatever it is. But there's a balance of quality versus quantity. So those high quality ones, there's just less of them, right? So then the next stage down is, well, they've taken an action on your industry. They follow a competitor. They comment on an industry post or an influencer or something like that. Those intent signals, there's now more of them. They're a little bit less quality, but you get the scale that required in an outbound campaign to either book meetings or get signups or whatever your goal is.
Yeah, about that, there has to be a clear differentiation between inbound and outbound signals. I'd like to call them inbound and outbound signals. Outbound signals channel is something that gives you perception of scaling on a specific ICP or an audience, expanding on market, if you will. And an inbound is something that you have to take care like very beginning for yourself, or if you're an agency for a client. Website tracking, prices, visit, obviously price page visits, so on and so forth, because all of those are inbound signals.
And never underestimate the just timing element as well. So just because you send, the one thing that is not a downfall of LinkedIn, I guess, but is the inbox itself. When you've sent that person a message, it's always there. Versus email, like email gets filed somewhere, they delete it. There's no thread. This is just constant thread. So if you go to retarget a list or something, then you're like, damn, I sent them a message 4 years ago. Like, it's still going to be there. But the timing element of, multiple touch points across a span of time is also important. Once you've exhausted your ICP, depending on how big that is, it could be a month, or it could be, basically unlimited of 2 years or 5 years to reach everyone with your resources. But the timing element, hitting them once every 3 months, once every 6 months, whatever you can do based on the volume you can send to, is also important, because they're not interested today, but they might be interested tomorrow or in a few months. So.
Absolutely. Even if they say no, nothing excludes them from being interested 6 months from now, right? Things change. Industry is dynamic. I mean, obviously everything changes, but yeah.
And that's how I think about multi-channel as well. So HeyReach obviously just integrated with Instantly and Smart Lead, which is two massive integrations, and which is great. That's how I think about using those, because obviously they're new. I've had to sit down and have a think. And what I suspect, but I'll get your perspective on this, I suspect people are just sending the same message on HeyReach and then on Instantly or Smart Lead and just doing that because it's easy and it's less work.
Yes.
I think that's probably the wrong move. I would say going either LinkedIn first as an initial touch point, because there's more context there, social, all that stuff, easier to build trust. If they don't respond or go through a campaign or do respond with no, there should be some sort of delay between LinkedIn and then reaching out on email to take advantage of things changing in timing. That's how I think about it, but interested to hear your thoughts.
No, definitely. I mean, there are two key components in your LinkedIn outbound campaign. I mean, the connection request is the holy grail of the LinkedIn outbound, because if you get accepted, that means that you can start messaging. So event number one, connection request sent, accepted or not accepted. Now HeyReach obviously will take care of the part where they will accept, and your automated flow or a cadence of messages will start. So that part is good. But then again, like, there is this flow of, well, not accepted, what next, right? And let's remember, this is a person that you spent play credits, research time, whatever it is, matching ICP, long story short. If you don't, you just need to make the message to your email congruent to the LinkedIn message. So connection request sent, no acceptance, then your email starts with, I've tried reaching you on LinkedIn, but no luck. The reason why I wanted to reach out is because X, Y, and Z. So now we add another layer of, okay, so this person reached out to me on LinkedIn, I have not seen that. So you want them to put them into that position. And then you have the second event. If they accept a connection request, and obviously your message sequence rolls out, you will get to a response or no response, right? The email itself, that, or the message on LinkedIn, on Smart Lead or Instantly, that should be sent out would be, hey, I've sent you a bunch of messages on LinkedIn, but I guess the timing is off. Let me know if that's the case, or if you prefer to have a chat on this channel, or if you have a chat over email rather than LinkedIn.
And that's the value of an agency, is building those delays and multi-channel workflows around that, because it doesn't make sense. I just get the sense that people are doing the exact same message at pretty much the same time, just to smash people with messages on email and LinkedIn.
People are copy and pasting the same script that they have found on a YouTube video, and they're trying to generate business out of it, right? It's not going to work. This is where you need an agency service, or at least get them in a position to understand and to prove value and get learnings out of that one. Like, that's the best thing that can happen.
What else, just to wrap up the 2026 playbook, what else would you say is super important looking into this year?
Well, 2026, I mean, email is taking its course towards specific downfall. So what that means, like, if you needed 300 emails for one positive response, you're going to need 500 emails. And now where this will stop, who knows, right? Stuff like that. So with that being said, like, we are getting in a position where we have drained out the sources for lead generation on the traditional channels, such as cold calling and email. Like, I don't know, like, so few people actually do a cold call these days, or at least I'm not in that space. Maybe people will opt in for LinkedIn, and when the people are opting in for LinkedIn, 26 will be the year where more DMs will be sent across the board, not just from the tool, just from every business aspect out there. So you have to stand out in terms of like from all that noise, whether it's you being relevant or whether you being relevant. That's the only thing that will cut you through any noise really these days. And then it comes second prediction, obviously. Hyper personalization will proven to be something that people are spending too much time and effort without real business impact. So that will go also a little bit on the downfall.
Yep. And my rapid fire predictions for 2026, I do think 2025 was the golden age, and I think 2026 will continue to be the golden age of LinkedIn. I have a really good feeling about that. Content, I think, will become even more critical for success because everyone, well, not everyone, but a lot of people are posting content and super valuable content. I mean, I've seen people spend tens of thousands of dollars to do lead magnets. So the gap in quality of production, the gap in the investment around content for marketing will probably get even wider, and I think becomes more and more important to build trust on a social platform like LinkedIn. The other trend I'm seeing as well that may continue, I think will, is employee-led content versus founder-led content. Now we don't actually do that at ScaleMate, but it's something I've thought about. Probably a trade-off of like time investment to other priorities and things they actually need to do, and who's good in front of a camera, who's good at writing, like hard to hire for a specific role, like customer success manager who's also pretty good at marketing. Like that's a rare human. So I'm sure there's a bit of a balance there, but I am seeing like super successful agencies and other businesses where employees are generating content as well.
Oh no, I mean, that's the case with us. We have designated marketing strategy designed by our CMO where 10 people from this company actively post 2 or 3 times per week on LinkedIn. And that's generating business for us, right? Yeah. That's an employee. Yes, the founder and the CEO is there. And yes, I as a CRO am there, but you have people in our support department, like support individual contributors, having something to say. Because truth to be told, everyone has something to say in this industry because everyone has a certain level of experience. You don't have to be like the best person, the best copywriter. Yes, it will be ugly at the very beginning, but it will progress to be even better. And then again, you have to invest with someone to level up that game if you're not skillful enough. And because like time is running out, obviously.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I think we're almost at the top of the hour, so thank you very much for this conversation. Hopefully, not only agencies are going to get a lot of value from this, but I think the end users of the HeyReach platform should get a lot of value from this conversation. Where can they find you, Ilija, for that great content you post on LinkedIn?
Yeah, well, basically, it wouldn't be dumb for me to say people can find me on email. Like that makes sense from this point on. They can just easily find me on LinkedIn. I pretty much have a first name, last name you cannot really miss. So yeah, I'm hoping that like if you have any questions, feel free to shoot a LinkedIn DM. Would not get mad.
Yeah, same here. I have an unusual combination of names. So HeyReach on LinkedIn, HeyReach on YouTube as well. And check us out at scalingmate.ai.
Awesome.